चढ़ती कला टाइम टीवी।
ਚੜ੍ਹਦੀ ਕਲਾ ਟਾਈਮ ਟੀਵੀ ਦੇਖ ਰਹੇ ਸਾਰੇ ਦਰਸ਼ਕਾਂ ਦਾ ਵੱਲ ਪੰਜਾਬੀ ਨਿਊਜ਼ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਸਵਾਗਤ ਹੈ। ਮੈਂ ਤੁਹਾਡੇ ਨਾਲ ਰਿਦਮ। ਖਬਰਾਂ ਦੀ ਸ਼ੁਰੂਆਤ ਕਰਨ ਤੋਂ ਪਹਿਲਾਂ ਇੱਕ ਨਜ਼ਰ ਮਾਰਦੇ ਹਾਂ ਕੁਝ ਖਾਸ ਹੈਡਲਾਈਨਸ ਤੇ। ਟੋਰਾਂਟੋ ਦੇ ਮੇਅਰ ਜੌਨ ਟੋਰੀ ਨੇ 311 ਹੈਲਪਲਾਈਨ ਸੇਵਾ ਦੀ ਕੀਤੀ ਸ਼ੁਰੂਆਤ। ਸੂਬੇ ਅੰਦਰ ਡਿਜੀਟਲ ਸੇਵਾਵਾਂ ਦਾ ਹੋਵੇਗਾ ਵਿਸਥਾਰ। ਕੈਨੇਡਾ ਪ੍ਰਧਾਨ ਮੰਤਰੀ ਜਸਟਿਨ ਟਰੂਡੋ ਨੇ ਲਿੰਟਨ ਦੀਆਂ ਯਾਦਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਕੀਤਾ ਤਾਜ਼ਾ। ਕਲਾਈਮੇਟ ਚੇਂਜ ਖਿਲਾਫ ਕਾਰਵਾਈ ਕਰਨ ਦੀ ਕੀਤੀ ਮੰਗ। ਐਲਬਰਟਾ ਦੇ ਪ੍ਰੀਮੀਅਰ ਜੇਸਨ ਕੈਨੀ ਨੇ 16 ਨਵੇਂ ਪ੍ਰੋਜੈਕਟਾਂ ਦਾ ਕੀਤਾ ਐਲਾਨ। $176 ਮਿਲੀਅਨ ਦਾ ਕੀਤਾ ਜਾਵੇਗਾ ਨਿਵੇਸ਼। ਤੇ ਹੁਣ ਖਬਰਾਂ ਵਿਸਥਾਰ ਨਾਲ। ਟੋਰਾਂਟੋ ਦੇ ਮੇਅਰ ਜੌਨ ਟੋਰੀ ਨੇ ਸੂਬੇ ਅੰਦਰ 311 ਹੈਲਪਲਾਈਨ ਸੇਵਾ ਦੀ ਸ਼ੁਰੂਆਤ ਦੀ ਘੋਸ਼ਣਾ ਕੀਤੀ, ਜਿਸ ਵਿੱਚ ਸੂਬੇ ਅੰਦਰ डिजिटल सेवावां दा विस्तार होवेगा ਅਤੇ इस नंबर ते होर गैर एमरजेंसी म्यूनसिपल सेवावां संबंधी बेनतियां ते अपडेट प्रदान की जाएगी। नाल ही उन्होंने दस्सिया कि हुण सारियां 600 म्यूनसिपल सेवावां ऑनलाइन उपलब्ध ने।
You can see behind me what you see if you hadn't figured out what it is that is the 311 call center, and a lot of people call centers and never really know where they are and who's answering, and we have a very dedicated team and a really state-of-the-art facility here to try and deal with literally millions of phone calls who come here over the course of time on all kinds of different things. And today is a day on which we can be celebrating that we found a way and actually implemented a way as of just now to do this much better. And of course it was very much a team effort, and I'm joined in particular today, as Gary mentioned, by Deputy Mayor Councillor Stephen Holliday, by the Deputy City Manager, Josie Scioli, and by the Chief Technology Officer, Lawrence Etta, and of course Gary himself, who is responsible, and if you can imagine that job of having accountability for the call center and its functioning and for the resolution of a lot of the matters, because in the end you tend to hold to account the people that you call or that you email or that you get in touch with, and we're trying to make that whole process as easy and as comfortable as possible. I was determined, especially in this last 4 years, to modernize the way the city dealt with its customers, because I look at you people out as customers, people out across the city, that we had to do better in terms of just making it much easier for you to communicate with the city in different ways, to get problems solved, to bring things to our attention. And today is a big day in actually moving that a huge step forward. There have been small improvements along the way, and they all count, but this is a big improvement happening all at once. And 311 really is the gateway to the city and to the city administration and to the services we provide and to all of the resolution of different problems that you might encounter as a resident of the city of Toronto. It was hugely important, of course, during the pandemic, 311, and residents relied very heavily for answers to questions about public health, for information about how to go and get different things done, about the current state of affairs when it came to restrictions and other kinds of things that were in effect. 311 fielded 2 million calls during the last 19 months, the period of the pandemic, and that was added to by 190,000 emails, 60,000 web requests, and 4.6 million online knowledge-based views, people looking for information and really going no further than that, not interacting with us, but looking for information.
ਕੈਨੇਡਾ ਪ੍ਰਧਾਨ ਮੰਤਰੀ ਜਸਟਿਨ ਟਰੂਡੋ ਨੇ ਲਿੰਟਨ ਦੀਆਂ ਯਾਦਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਚਿਤਾਰਦਿਆਂ ਕਲਾਈਮੇਟ ਚੇਂਜ ਖਿਲਾਫ ਕਾਰਵਾਈ ਕਰਨ ਦੀ ਮੰਗ ਕੀਤੀ। ਇਸ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਹੀ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਰਸਮੀ ਤੌਰ ਉੱਤੇ ਕੈਨੇਡਾ ਦੇ ਤੇਲ ਤੇ ਗੈਸ ਸੈਕਟਰ ਵੱਲੋਂ ਕੀਤੇ ਜਾਂਦੇ ਗ੍ਰੀਨ ਹਾਊਸ ਗੈਸਾਂ ਦੇ ਰਿਸਾਅ ਉੱਤੇ ਰੋਕ ਲਾਉਣ ਦੀ ਰਸਮੀ ਤੌਰ ਉੱਤੇ ਵਚਨਬੱਧਤਾ ਵੀ ਪ੍ਰਗਟਾਈ।
In Canada, there was a town called Lytton. I say was because on June 30th it burned to the ground. The day before, the temperature had hit 49.6 degrees Celsius, the hottest ever recorded in our country. Canada is warming on average twice as quickly as the rest of the world, and in our north it's 3 times quicker. The science is clear. We must do more and faster. So that's the pledge and the call I bring to this historic meeting. We've already laid the groundwork. In 2015 at the COP in Paris, I committed that Canada would put a price on pollution. We did that. And despite stiff political opposition, the Supreme Court upheld it, and Canadians supported it in our last 2 elections. We know pollution pricing is key to getting emissions down while getting innovation up and running. Our carbon price trajectory is one of the most globally ambitious ones, and it's rising to $170 a ton in 2030. This is a meaningful price on pollution designed not just to make life cleaner, but also make life more affordable and less expensive for Canadians. I call on other countries to do the same. Just as globally we've agreed to a minimum corporate tax, we must work together to ensure it is no longer free to pollute anywhere in the world. That means establishing a shared minimum standard for pricing pollution. Of course, what's even better than pricing emissions is ensuring that they don't happen in the first place. Which brings me to my next major commitment. We'll cap oil and gas sector emissions today and ensure they decrease tomorrow at a pace and scale needed to reach net zero by 2050.
ਅਲਬਰਟਾ ਦੇ ਪ੍ਰੀਮੀਅਰ ਜੇਸਨ ਕੈਨੀ ਨੇ 16 ਨਵੇਂ ਪ੍ਰੋਜੈਕਟਾਂ ਲਈ $176 ਮਿਲੀਅਨ ਦੀ ਘੋਸ਼ਣਾ ਕੀਤੀ, ਜਿਸ ਦਾ ਉਦੇਸ਼ ਨਿਕਾਸ ਨੂੰ ਘਟਾਉਣਾ ਅਤੇ ਸੂਬੇ ਦੀ ਆਰਥਿਕਤਾ ਵਿੱਚ ਵਿਭਿੰਨਤਾ ਲਿਆਉਣਾ ਹੈ। ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੱਸਿਆ ਕਿ ਸੂਬਾਈ ਸਰਕਾਰ ਟੈਕਨੋਲੋਜੀ ਇਨੋਵੇਸ਼ਨ ਐਂਡ ਐਮਿਸ਼ਨ ਰਿਡਕਸ਼ਨ ਸਿਸਟਮ ਰਾਹੀਂ $126 ਮਿਲੀਅਨ ਦਾ ਨਿਵੇਸ਼ ਕਰੇਗੀ, ਜਦਕਿ $50 ਮਿਲੀਅਨ ਫੈਡਰਲ ਫੰਡਿੰਗ ਰਾਹੀਂ ਆਵੇਗਾ।
Last September, Alberta's government announced that we would invest the $750 million collected from our Technology, Innovation and Emissions Reduction Program into new technologies to lower emissions and create jobs in the process. This was announced as part of Alberta's recovery plan, a bold plan to create jobs and diversify our economy, in part by doubling down on Alberta's role in a responsible energy future. I'm pleased to say that $750 million of investment is being leveraged to access billions more in private investments for projects that are expected to create about 9,000 direct jobs while significantly lowering Alberta's greenhouse gas emissions. And part of that investment went towards Emissions Reduction Alberta's Shovel Ready Challenge. 1 year ago tomorrow, the Shovel Ready Challenge was issued to Alberta companies, municipalities and industry associations that were ready to implement new emissions reducing technologies. Each successful applicant was eligible for up to $15 million in funding from Emissions Reduction Alberta through the TIER program to help bring their technological achievements to life. Today, I'm announcing that 16 emissions-reducing projects will receive $176 million in funding for this challenge. That's $126 million from Alberta's TIER Fund and another $50 million from the Federal Low Carbon Economy Leadership Fund. Together, these projects, many of which are already underway, will inject $2 billion into Alberta's economy and eliminate almost 7 million tons of greenhouse gas emissions by 2030. That's equivalent to eliminating emissions from the electricity used by 1 million homes. These projects are ready to start very soon, and this batch of funding will support about 5,600 jobs for Alberta's construction workers, operations managers, electricians, truck drivers, engineers, tradespeople and many more.
ਸੰਯੁਕਤ ਰਾਸ਼ਟਰ ਦੀ ਜਲਵਾਯੂ ਪਰਿਵਰਤਨ ਕਾਨਫਰੰਸ COP26 ਵਿੱਚ ਹਿੱਸਾ ਲੈਣ ਪਹੁੰਚੇ ਕੈਨੇਡਾ ਦੇ ਵਾਤਾਵਰਣ ਅਤੇ ਜਲਵਾਯੂ ਪਰਿਵਰਤਨ ਦੇ ਮੰਤਰੀ ਸਟੀਫਨ ਗੈਲਬੋਲਟ ਨੇ ਪੱਤਰਕਾਰਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਸੰਬੋਧਨ ਕੀਤਾ। ਇਸ ਦੌਰਾਨ ਪੱਤਰਕਾਰਾਂ ਦੇ ਸਵਾਲਾਂ ਦੇ ਜਵਾਬ ਦਿੰਦਿਆਂ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਕਿਹਾ ਕਿ ਕੈਨੇਡਾ ਸਰਕਾਰ ਜਲਵਾਯੂ ਪਰਿਵਰਤਨ ਦੇ ਮੁੱਦੇ ਤੇ ਪੂਰੀ ਤਰ੍ਹਾਂ ਗੰਭੀਰ ਹੈ ਤੇ ਇਸ ਮੁੱਦੇ ਤੇ ਹੱਲ ਵਾਸਤੇ ਪੂਰਨ ਸਹਿਯੋਗ ਦੇ ਰਹੀ ਹੈ।
As many of you know, this is not the first time that I come to one of these conferences. This is the 19th time that I participate in one of the conferences of the United Nations on climate change. Obviously, this time in a very different role as Minister of the Environment and Climate Change. And I mean, we come here in a very different position than last time I was representing environmental groups in these meetings where Canada's position wasn't a very good one. And countries, by and large, didn't look to Canada as a partner to work on climate change. The world is watching. And as Sir David Attenborough said this morning, let's work together to turn this tragedy into triumph for the people and for the planet. Raising ambition is exactly what we've done. We've raised our target as per the Paris Accord, and we've submitted this last spring as we were supposed to do specifically for this COP. We've doubled our climate change adaptation aid, and we submitted that for this COP as per schedule from the Paris Agreement. So we're doing exactly what we said we would do. In Paris, we said we would put a price on pollution. Canada is one of the most ambitious carbon pricing system in the world, and I'd like to add to that. During the last election campaign, we made a commitment to put a cap on the emissions of the oil and gas sector. We are the only major producer of oil and gas in the world to have made such a commitment, and I can tell you that when the Prime Minister announced that today, we got some praises from countries like Barbados or the United States of America. Special Envoy Kerry came to see us and said, this is a really interesting measure. Is this something we could work together? So I think that what we're bringing to the table is clearly getting very positive attention.
ਨਿਊਫਾਊਂਡਲੈਂਡ ਅਤੇ ਲੈਬਰਾਡੋਰ ਦੇ ਸਿਹਤ ਮੰਤਰੀ ਨੇ ਇੱਕ ਸਾਈਬਰ ਅਟੈਕ ਬਾਰੇ ਅਪਡੇਟ ਪ੍ਰਦਾਨ ਕੀਤੀ ਹੈ, ਜਿਸ ਨੇ ਸੂਬੇ ਭਰ ਵਿੱਚ ਸਿਹਤ ਸੰਭਾਲ ਦੀਆਂ ਸੇਵਾਵਾਂ ਵਿੱਚ ਵਿਘਨ ਪਾਇਆ ਅਤੇ ਹਜ਼ਾਰਾਂ ਪ੍ਰਕਿਰਿਆਵਾਂ ਅਤੇ ਨਿਯੁਕਤੀਆਂ ਨੂੰ ਰੱਦ ਕਰ ਦਿੱਤਾ। ਇਸ ਸਾਈਬਰ ਹਮਲੇ ਦਾ ਸਭ ਤੋਂ ਪਹਿਲਾਂ 30 ਅਕਤੂਬਰ ਨੂੰ ਪਤਾ ਲੱਗਾ ਸੀ। ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੱਸਿਆ ਕਿ ਸੂਬੇ ਦਾ ਪੂਰਬੀ ਹਿੱਸਾ ਇਸ ਸਾਈਬਰ ਅਟੈਕ ਨਾਲ ਸਭ ਤੋਂ ਵੱਧ ਪ੍ਰਭਾਵਿਤ ਹੋਇਆ ਹੈ।
Over the course of the weekend, strike action resulted in a variety of impacts on services across New Brunswick. So work stoppages affected a number of services that we count on every day, including delays on ferry services, impacts on correctional facilities, court stenography services, and adult and child protection services. We also saw impacts on laundry services for hospitals and on some nursing homes. And probably most troubling, given that we are in the middle of a pandemic, vaccination clinics and COVID-19 screening in healthcare locations across New Brunswick was also impacted. So these functions are all obviously necessary to support the continued health and safety of all New Brunswickers. And government is going to continue to focus on our contingency plans and to explore all options to ensure that essential services can remain in place throughout the duration of this strike. So yesterday, as most are aware, government took further action to provide the education system with a greater degree of stability. There's been discussion around the words instability in education. I want to be very clear about what that means. That as we did not receive formal notification from most of the QP workers who have been out on strike since Friday morning, that put us in the difficult position of having no idea in any given hour or a day about which schools were going to be affected. Because of course, if someone is turning up for work in the morning, there's no guarantee they would stay there for the whole day, unless those plans are shared in advance, and those plans have not been shared with us. So, as everyone knows, today is the first day students will learn from home. This will continue until the strike ends. We have put virtual learning in place, not out of any idea that it is an acceptable replacement for face-to-face learning, but solely as an option that is better than the alternative, which is no education at all. We're doing this so the teachers can coordinate their lesson plans and students have at least some degree of certainty and routine in the middle of a very unstable time.
ਨਿਊ ਬਰੁੰਜ਼ਵਿਕ ਦੇ ਸਿੱਖਿਆ ਮੰਤਰੀ ਨੇ ਇੱਕ ਪ੍ਰੈਸ ਕਾਨਫਰੰਸ ਕੀਤੀ। ਇਸ ਦੌਰਾਨ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਸੂਬੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਜਨਤਕ ਖੇਤਰ ਤੇ ਕਰਮਚਾਰੀਆਂ ਦੁਆਰਾ ਕੀਤੀ ਹੜਤਾਲ ਦੇ ਪ੍ਰਭਾਵਾਂ ਬਾਰੇ ਪੱਤਰਕਾਰਾਂ ਨਾਲ ਆਪਣੇ ਵਿਚਾਰ ਸਾਂਝੇ ਕੀਤੇ। ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਯੂਨੀਅਨ ਲੀਡਰਸ਼ਿਪ ਨੂੰ ਠੋਸ ਵਚਨਬੱਧਤਾਵਾਂ ਨਾਲ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਤੱਕ ਪਹੁੰਚਾਉਣ ਦੀ ਅਪੀਲ ਕੀਤੀ, ਜਿਸ ਨਾਲ ਘੱਟੋ-ਘੱਟ ਕੁਝ ਸਕੂਲਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਸੁਰੱਖਿਅਤ ਰੂਪ ਨਾਲ ਦੁਬਾਰਾ ਖੋਲ੍ਹਣਾ ਸੰਭਵ ਹੋ ਸਕੇ।
We on Saturday morning became aware of progressive issues with our IT systems in health, and it seems through discussions with Bell, our provider, of those services at the data center that we may have been victims of a possible cyber attack by a third party. This led to progressive failure of what's been described to me as the brain of the data center and a loss of functionality in systems across the regional health authorities. Because of this, we activated our Provincial Emergency Operations Centre to more fully address the impacts across the system, whilst at the same time ensuring that Bell, Centre for Health Information and the appropriate authorities were notified to look into the background to these failures. Our aim over the last 48 hours has been to mitigate the effects on the people of this province, to work on remediation and to help where possible Bell rebuild their system. The same staff that have helped us through COVID in the regional health authorities, in the department, in the centre, once again stepped up, literally working pretty well round the clock given the nature of the problems. And I'd like to take this opportunity to personally thank every one of them because they have helped to mitigate significantly the impact. Each of the regional health authorities has been affected, but to a different extent. The maximum impact seems to have been wrought on Eastern Health's operations. They set up their emergency operations centre, and that's one of the reasons I have Mr. Diamond here today to discuss some further implications there. Each of the regional health authorities, as I say, has been affected, but Western and Labrador Grenfell appear to be as near normal operations as any of them, with Central somewhere in the middle.
ਬ੍ਰਿਟਿਸ਼ ਕੋਲੰਬੀਆ ਦੀ ਚੀਫ ਮੈਡੀਕਲ ਅਧਿਕਾਰੀ ਡਾਕਟਰ ਬੋਨੀ ਹੈਨਰੀ ਅਤੇ BC ਦੇ ਸਿਹਤ ਮੰਤਰੀ ਐਡਰਿਨ ਡਿਕਸ ਨੇ ਸੂਬੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਕੋਵਿਡ-19 ਦੀ ਸਥਿਤੀ ਬਾਰੇ ਇੱਕ ਅਪਡੇਟ ਪ੍ਰਦਾਨ ਕੀਤੀ ਹੈ। ਉਹਨਾਂ ਘੋਸ਼ਣਾ ਕੀਤੀ ਕਿ ਸੂਬੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਕੋਈ ਵੀ ਜਨਤਕ ਸੇਵਾ ਕਰਮਚਾਰੀ ਜਿਸ ਨੇ 22 ਨਵੰਬਰ ਤੱਕ ਕੋਵਿਡ-19 ਵੈਕਸੀਨ ਦੀ ਘੱਟੋ-ਘੱਟ ਇੱਕ ਖੁਰਾਕ ਵੀ ਨਹੀਂ ਲਈ ਹੈ, ਉਸ ਨੂੰ 3 ਮਹੀਨਿਆਂ ਲਈ ਬਿਨਾਂ ਤਨਖਾਹ ਦੇ ਛੁੱਟੀ ਤੇ ਰੱਖਿਆ ਜਾਵੇਗਾ।
I wanted to update you on the public service agency's vaccinations. Several weeks ago, we told you of the coming requirement for all those employed by the BC Public Service to be vaccinated against COVID-19. The BC Public Service showed leadership and set an example for other employees by requiring all those employed by the BC Public Service to be vaccinated. Here's where the effort stands today. Employees who do not provide proof of vaccination or refuse to disclose their vaccination status by November 22nd will be considered unvaccinated. Public service employees who do not have at least one dose of the vaccine by November 22nd, or there is not an approved accommodation based on a medical condition or other protected grounds, will be placed on unpaid leave for 3 months. Partially vaccinated employees, those having received only one dose, may be offered alternative work arrangements and will be required to provide proof of vaccination, full vaccination, within 35 days of having received their first dose. Partially vaccinated employees who are not fully vaccinated within that timeline will be placed on unpaid leave. Employees who are still unvaccinated after the 3-month unpaid leave may be terminated. This is a necessary step to support vaccination and help protect all our workplaces and communities from COVID-19. We know the vast majority of people are already vaccinated with at least one dose. Over 12, that number is 89.9% today. And I thank all public servants and all British Columbians who've made the decision to get vaccinated. I also want to thank everyone who works in the BC Public Service for the work they've done over the last 2 years, showing the highest level of professionalism and dedication during these unprecedented and difficult times. With respect to mandatory vaccinations for healthcare workers, I want to bring you an update as to the numbers there. We have 127, excluding long-term care and assisted living, 127,448 total healthcare workers in BC. That's people who worked at least one shift in the last 3 months.
ਹਿੰਦੂ ਫੋਰਮ ਕੈਨੇਡਾ ਨੇ ਦੇਸ਼ ਦੇ ਸਭ ਤੋਂ ਵੱਧ ਆਬਾਦੀ ਵਾਲੇ ਸੂਬੇ ਓਨਟਾਰੀਓ ਵਿੱਚ ਹਿੰਦੂ ਵਿਰਾਸਤੀ ਮਹੀਨਾ ਮਨਾਉਣ ਦੀ ਸ਼ੁਰੂਆਤ ਕੀਤੀ ਹੈ, ਜਿਸ ਵਿੱਚ ਲਗਭਗ 10 ਲੱਖ ਹਿੰਦੂ ਰਹਿੰਦੇ ਨੇ। ਦੇਵੀ ਮੰਦਰ ਪਿਕਰਿੰਗ ਦੇ ਸਹਿਯੋਗ ਨਾਲ ਕੈਨੇਡੀਅਨ ਹਿੰਦੂਆਂ ਦੇ ਕੁੱਲ ਰੂਟ ਸੰਗਠਨ ਨੇ ਹਿੰਦੂ ਵਿਰਾਸਤੀ ਮਹੀਨਾ ਮਨਾਉਣ ਲਈ ਗ੍ਰੇਟਰ ਟੋਰਾਂਟੋ ਖੇਤਰਾਂ ਵਿੱਚ ਵਿਸ਼ਾਲ ਬਿਲਬੋਰਡ ਪ੍ਰਦਰਸ਼ਿਤ ਕੀਤੇ ਨੇ। ਇਸ ਪ੍ਰੋਗਰਾਮ ਦੇ ਇੱਕ ਮੈਂਬਰ ਨੇ ਕਿਹਾ, ਅੱਜ ਦਾ ਦਿਨ ਬਹੁਤ ਖੁਸ਼ੀ ਭਰਪੂਰ ਅਤੇ ਸ਼ੁਭ ਹੈ ਕਿਉਂਕਿ ਦੇਵੀ ਮੰਦਿਰ ਅਤੇ ਹਿੰਦੂ ਫੋਰਮ ਕੈਨੇਡਾ ਨੇ ਮਿਲ ਕੇ ਹਿੰਦੂ ਵਿਰਾਸਤੀ ਮਹੀਨਾ ਮਨਾਇਆ। ਦਸੰਬਰ 2016 ਵਿੱਚ ਇਸ ਮਹੀਨੇ ਨੂੰ ਹਿੰਦੂ ਵਿਰਾਸਤੀ ਮਹੀਨਾ ਵਜੋਂ ਘੋਸ਼ਿਤ ਕੀਤਾ ਗਿਆ ਸੀ। ਇਸ ਸਮਾਗਮ ਦਾ ਉਦਘਾਟਨ ਟੋਰਾਂਟੋ ਵਿੱਚ ਭਾਰਤ ਦੇ ਕੌਂਸਲੇਟ ਜਨਰਲ ਅਪੂਰਵਾ ਸ਼੍ਰੀਵਾਸਤਵ ਨੇ ਕੀਤਾ। ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਸਾਰੇ ਭਾਈਚਾਰੇ ਦੇ ਮੈਂਬਰਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਦੀਵਾਲੀ ਦੀਆਂ ਸ਼ੁਭਕਾਮਨਾਵਾਂ ਦਿੱਤੀਆਂ। ਸਮਾਰੋਹ ਵਿੱਚ 200 ਤੋਂ ਵੱਧ ਕਮਿਊਨਿਟੀ ਮੈਂਬਰਾਂ ਨੇ ਹਿੱਸਾ ਲਿਆ। ਸਮਾਗਮ ਦੌਰਾਨ ਕੋਰੋਨਾ ਵਾਇਰਸ ਪ੍ਰੋਟੋਕੋਲ ਦੀ ਪਾਲਣਾ ਕਰਦੇ ਹੋਏ 2 ਘੰਟੇ ਤੋਂ ਵੱਧ ਸਮੇਂ ਤੱਕ ਭਜਨ ਤੇ ਸੱਭਿਆਚਾਰਕ ਨਾਚਾਂ ਦਾ ਪ੍ਰਦਰਸ਼ਨ ਕੀਤਾ ਗਿਆ। ਸਥਾਨਕ ਗੁਰਦੁਆਰਾ ਸਾਹਿਬ ਦੇ ਸਿੱਖ ਆਗੂਆਂ ਨੇ ਨਾਲ ਸਥਾਨਕ ਪੁਲਿਸ ਅਧਿਕਾਰੀ, ਸੂਬਾਈ ਪਾਰਲੀਮੈਂਟ ਦੇ ਮੈਂਬਰ, ਡਿਪਟੀ ਮੇਅਰ ਅਤੇ ਹੋਰ ਪਤਵੰਤੇ ਵੀ ਇਸ ਮੌਕੇ ਹਾਜ਼ਰ ਸਨ। ਗੁਰਦੁਆਰਿਆਂ ਵੱਲੋਂ ਹਿੰਦੂ ਵਿਰਾਸਤੀ ਮਹੀਨੇ ਦੇ ਸਮਾਗਮ ਦੌਰਾਨ ਦੁਪਹਿਰ ਦੇ ਭੋਜਨ ਦਾ ਪ੍ਰਬੰਧ ਕੀਤਾ ਗਿਆ। ਫਿਲਹਾਲ ਵਰਲਡ ਪੰਜਾਬੀ ਨਿਊਜ਼ ਵਿੱਚ ਇੰਨਾ ਹੀ। ਹੋਰ ਤਾਜ਼ਾ ਖਬਰਾਂ ਲਈ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਵੇਖਦੇ ਰਹੋ ਚੜ੍ਹਦੀ ਕਲਾ ਟਾਈਮ ਟੀਵੀ। ਮੈਨੂੰ ਦਿਓ ਆਗਿਆ। ਧੰਨਵਾਦ।